Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be filming my 10,000 subscriber Q&A celebration video. So again, just starting off, thank you guys so much for supporting me and for helping me grow this channel over the past couple of years. I can't believe we're at 10,000 subscribers. It kind of blows my mind that many people are interested in seeing something I have to say or do or react to. So yeah, thank you guys again so much for all of your support. And I thought, just as a little appreciation note, I could do a Q&A. Some people have been asking for that over the past couple of years, so I figured let's give it a shot. So I've seen you guys put in some questions, and I see that there's some variety from, people who are more interested in fighting games to the people that watch my movie reactions to just daily life things. So if you're here for maybe just one of those, then maybe you'll find out something interesting. I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, don't mind this. I guess I'll explain that a little at the end, although maybe some of the questions will kind of touch on it, get into it a little bit, relate. But yes, we're purple and pink today. All right, so the first question that I was going to address actually comes from Patreon. And this is an interesting one. The question was asking me what my thoughts are on season 8 of Game of Thrones and whether I feel like it is as bad as people say or whether I feel like it's worth watching, because this person is considering whether they're even gonna bother watching season 8. And obviously I am a huge, massive, not just Game of Thrones, but A Song of Ice and Fire, entire world of George R.R. Martin fan. Yeah, I mean, I literally have my babies here, Drogon and Viserion and Rhaegal, tattooed on my arm. So clearly my love of this subject matter goes very deep. I've read all of the books multiple times. So I'm just gonna start off by saying, if you are somebody who just really enjoys the world of Game of Thrones, I do think that you should at least give season 8 a watch. I personally don't think that it's as bad as a lot of people say. You'll have a lot of people out there saying, well, it ruined the entire series for me. It makes it so I regret ever watching it. It's the worst end of a show I've ever seen. And I think, honestly, a lot of that is hyperbole. It's that people had their expectations so high and they had certain things that they really wanted to happen. And when it didn't meet those expectations and when those specific things didn't happen, they really, really were let down. So, and people can just be hyperbolic in general, especially on the internet anyway. So to say this without going into spoilers for anyone who has not actually watched the final season, I will say that my opinion is that there's a couple of episodes in season 8, which is of course a short season to begin with, that are excellent. There are some fantastic moments in it that I would be sad if I had missed out on. There's some questions that are addressed, answered, that I'm not sure we'll ever get the chance to see addressed or answered in the book series, and that I really wanted to come to terms with, to deal with. So the answers to those questions may not be exactly what I was hoping for, and they might turn out to be different in the books, I'm not sure. But at least there are some answers, right? A lot of the complaints that people had to do with the last couple of episodes and the way that the show ended, and then also with the episode that focuses on the big battle at Winterfell, with the Army of the Dead and the Night King. And again, I don't want to get into spoilers, but I will say, I think that some of the criticism about the darkness, literal in terms of viewing, of the third episode were very reasonable and valid, and there are some other criticisms people made about that episode that are as well. And then there are other things that I think people, again, just had a particular idea of what they wanted to happen, and when it didn't, they just decided everything was horrible. Overall, I don't think that episode was really that bad. I think it was mostly good and well done. There's just some things that I would change, but I would need a spoiler discussion to get into it. And then I want to wrap this question up because I'm talking too much about one thing, and that's Game of Thrones. But as for the ending, some of the things that happen at the ending, I think that people feel like were out of character. I don't agree with that. I don't think those things were out of character. I think that it wasn't built up enough in the show, but that these things that are going to happen are actually going to also happen in the books if it ever comes out. It's just that it felt kind of unearned because it went too fast. They needed a little bit more time, a few more episodes to kind of build up to it, especially with the kind of extreme turn that it took. So I don't really think that the things that happened were out of character. I think they were painful to watch because you might have cared about those characters and didn't want to see that happen to them or them do those things. But I think that they were part of the plan. And I just think that it didn't feel like it was earned in the show. They needed more to make it feel earned. So it just felt a little wrong, like half-baked, so to speak. Even though production-wise it was beautifully done. So I will say, if it was me, I would think that you should still give it a watch at least, and I would say it's not as bad as people make it out to be. It's not like the end of Dexter or anything, guys. But yes, it be prepared. Go into it with your expectations low, and then maybe you'll enjoy it more than you think. If you go into it with your expectations sky high, then yeah, you're gonna be upset. But I definitely think it's worth watching. So, all right, moving on from there. Sorry guys, I talk a lot about Game of Thrones when people get me going, and if I was able to give spoilers, that would have been way more elaborate and a ridiculously long video. So, thank you very much for your question, and then let's see what else we got here. Okay, so do you like to play Mortal Kombat X2? Or they wrote XL, but yeah, I played Mortal Kombat X. I used mostly Melina, of course, my girl Melina, and then I used Kitana, and then some Tanya also, but I don't really play MKX anymore. I haven't really played MKX ever since MK11 came out. I know a lot of people have been going back to it, especially the last few months, but I haven't really, and I probably won't. There's a lot of other games I'm currently more into, so, but it was a fun game. I liked it at the time. I loved Melina in it, so. All right, next question. Favorite movie, favorite genre, favorite actor and actress. That's a lot. It's kind of hard for me to narrow those things down, to be honest, because I have a lot of films that I just love to death. There's definitely not a favorite genre. I like movies. I love movies across pretty much all genres. I love fantasy, science fiction. I love just dramatic films, thriller films, of course, action films, animated films. Really, there's no category of films that you won't find movies in that I love. So I can't give you a favorite genre. Maybe if I had to choose, maybe fantasy, but maybe dramatic suspense thrillers. It would be really hard to decide. As for favorite movie, again, also, there's just a huge amount that would fall in that category. But if you want to talk back to maybe some of my favorites that have been a favorite since I was a child and that I still love, there's, of course, the Lord of the Rings films, which I have a special place in my heart. One that might surprise some people is Jaws. I love Jaws. Oh, he's on the floor. Hang on. Sorry. What I was looking for had been knocked down by a cat, unsurprisingly. But yes, I have a little Jaws figure here. He's one of my figures that I keep up here. But one of the first movies that I was obsessed with as a kid for some reason. I don't know how I first saw it. I guess probably my parents, my dad used to watch a lot of movies with us that maybe were not 100% kid appropriate, but I was happy about it. And one of my favorites was Jaws. I used to watch it over and over again as a kid. I knew every scene, every moment. So much so that my sister hated it because I would put it on constantly. And I still, if it's on somewhere, I still will turn it on and just get lost in it and watch it. So it might seem funny to people, but that I just love, absolutely love that movie. Favorite actor and actress? It's really hard. That's really hard. There's a lot that I think are fantastic. I can try to come back to it, but it's not like I have a particular actor or actress that I am obsessed with or stan in any sort of way. I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anybody who anything they do that they'll. I'll probably watch anything that Harrison Ford is in. That's one, to be honest, just because of he's been in so many things, like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, that were both some of those movies when I was a kid too that were really I loved. So we'll go with that. We'll go with that. All right. What is the next movie you want to see that's linked with the Conjuring universe, like another Annabelle, Crooked Man, Origin, etc.? Well, I think maybe you're kind of asking me what's the next movie you'd like me to see them make, or are you asking me, I wonder what the next one I want to watch is? Because, of course, I've only seen the three actual Conjuring movies. I haven't seen any of the Annabelle films or The Nun or anything like that. And but the Crooked Man thing, Origin, makes me think that you're asking what I would like to see made next. So I think I can't really answer what I'd like to see made next when I haven't seen the other films, because I don't know what maybe is kind of missing. I don't know like how motivated I am to watch the other films, because one of the key things that draws me into the Conjuring universe is Ed and Lorraine's relationship and how well they're portrayed by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. So it'd be kind of weird, I feel like. But maybe I've heard that one of the Annabelle movies is really good, and I think it'd be curious to see The Nun, just because that was such a significant character in their kind of backstory, their lore. So I think it would be really cool to see how that character came to be. So, yeah. So Super J is asking, would you ever consider doing a talk show type stream interviewing ladies and gentlemen who've made a positive influence on the gaming community? Well, actually, I kind of already do that, though really specifically focused on women in the fighting game community. So that's myself and a couple of my teammates, Emmy BB and Dream, do host the Condom Hour, which is basically that. Every time that we host a show, we bring on one lady in the FGC who we feel like has made a pretty significant contribution to, either benefiting women in the community as a whole or just being a positive influence. And we just basically have a little fun podcast chat conversation while we also play a Koth and just have some fun games. So we already basically do that, and I probably wouldn't add another one on top of that, because I already feel like I'm doing way too much. But yeah, we already have that one, so maybe you can check it out. All right, let's see what else we got. What crossover fighting game would you like to see in the near future? Ooh, all right, that's interesting. So, a lot of people have talked about how much they'd love to see a Mortal Kombat Street Fighter game, and I love Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, but I don't think you can ever expect anything like that to happen, to be honest. Capcom isn't going to want to show Ryu and Chun-Li getting eviscerated by Mortal Kombat characters. And I'm not sure how Mortal Kombat fans would feel about their characters being kind of Capcom-ized either, if we were to go in that direction. People also talk about a Mortal Kombat versus Tekken. That, I think, would be more possible. But still, I don't know. The one that I would enjoy, that would be like sick, super awesome, would be Mortal Kombat versus Killer Instinct. That, I think, would be amazing. Now, I don't know if we could ever expect that, or even if we'd ever get another Killer Instinct. I hope. But I think that would be beautiful. And I would love to kill scorpions with my Riptor. That would be a dream. So that would be my ideal crossover fighting game, if we could have it. All right. Oh, and this just builds on this. As a newer viewer, which games do you enjoy out of the fighting game genre, if any? Well, I mentioned a couple of them, but yeah. So obviously the Mortal Kombat games are my favorite. Mortal Kombat 11 is currently what I play all the time, but I have played every Mortal Kombat game going back to the original games. So that is definitely my number one. It's always been not just my favorite fighting game series, but my favorite video game series of all time, by far. So Mortal Kombat is at the top. But I also play and love Street Fighter. The Street Fighter series is another one I've been playing since I was a kid. So also has a special place in my heart. Not quite the level of Mortal Kombat, but I do love it. I love it too. And then Killer Instinct is another one that I've played quite a bit now at this point, even though I got into it very late. And I wish I had had a chance to play it much earlier, but I just didn't. I didn't have an Xbox, and I never had a PC that was capable until the last couple years of playing that. So, but that game is amazing. It's super fun, and I really hope that they do a new one in the future. Come on, Microsoft, give us a new KI, please. But then, on top of that, I've tried out Skullgirls, and I find that really fun. I haven't really gotten into it that much, but I'd like to spend more time with it. And then recently, of course, I've tried Virtua Fighter 5, and Guilty Gear Strive is what I'm getting into right now. And I think both of those games, even though they're kind of like the polar opposite of each other in some ways, are really interesting and fun in their kind of own style. And I think that Guilty Gear is the one that I'm going to be spending the most time on out of these other games besides Mortal Kombat, because right now I'm really into it. But I'd like to get into Virtua Fighter more too, just because it seems like it's so different than any other fighting game. I'd be curious to get into it. And then there's other games that I have that I still haven't even gotten a chance to play that I want to, like Power Rangers Battle for the Grid and Them's Fightin' Herds. I have both of those games ready to go, and I'm gonna try them when I get time. But I pretty much love most fighting games. I also have Tekken. I've only played it a little bit. It intimidates me. Honestly, that's what it is. It intimidates me. But I feel like I got it a long time ago, and I had only really been playing Mortal Kombat and some Street Fighter, and since then I feel like I've played so much more that maybe I should give it a try and be daring. Right? I feel like I'm in a much better place. So yeah, pretty much all fighting games I love. All of them. And it's kind of funny because I'm not really a big gamer with any other type of games. It's pretty much just fighting games, and then I kind of always loved Diablo. So I'm excited for the Diablo 2 Resurrected. All right, let's see what else we got. Someone asking if I would do a commentary on Godzilla vs. King Kong. Yes, I would and have, and it's on my channel, so please check it out. It is there waiting. All right. Which character from Mortal Kombat is the most annoying to go against, and what character is your favorite to use? The most annoying to go against for me is and will always be Scorpion. I'm sorry. I know, guys. I know he's not top tier. I get it, but he annoys me more than anyone, and that's never going to change. My favorite character to play across the series has been Melina. She's always been my number one girl. I love her. But in Mortal Kombat 11, my favorite character to play is Skarlet. I also really have fun with Jade, but Skarlet she's found a place in my heart, and I just have a lot of fun with her. Is there any movie that you won't ever watch, though that movie is popular? Interesting. And if there is, what's the reason? You know, I like to be kind of open-minded and give most things a try, but I'm gonna admit that I have never seen a Twilight movie. I mean, I've never, of course, I have also never read the books, but I've never seen Twilight, any of the movies, anything really at all. I was never interested. My sister and some other people I knew were obsessed with Twilight, but to me, I don't know, I was always really into horror, and it seemed like the opposite of the sort of vampire story I'd like to see. And then, you know, a lot of things people have said since then have just kind of confirmed for me that's not something I really want to watch. I mean, maybe it would be funny for me to watch it and do a reaction because I probably would not enjoy it, but who knows? Who knows? But I mean, I had never, that's a movie that has been pretty popular, but that I just never had any interest in watching or intended to watch at all. So there's that one. All right, and then we got some questions here that are more just kind of, I guess, related to life, general life things, which is cool. So I want to get to those. What's your motivation to become a YouTuber? This one's funny because I kind of just stumbled into being a YouTuber. I didn't it was never ever something that I imagined myself doing, was having a YouTube channel at all, let alone putting so much time into it and doing so many different things on it. Um, I've talked about this a bit in my health related videos, discussing my chronic health problems and how they've been disabling in certain ways and the things that they've kind of changed in my life. But yeah, basically, I had a whole different life and career path and trajectory. I was earning my PhD in anthropology, and I was a teacher. I taught both undergraduates, so college students, anthropology, sociology courses, and then I also taught in high schools. I taught history of all kinds, US history, world history. I taught economics, I taught political science, I taught sociology there, also philosophy, all sorts of things. So that was my life. I was an educator, I was an academic, I was working towards my PhD. I have 3 master's degrees. Was so far removed from this world, but I ended up getting really sick. I have endometriosis. It is basically disabling, and I had to give that up. I had to give up my career and my PhD program, my aspirations for that, because I physically can't do it. I physically can't spend that many hours. I can't do the 10 to 14-hour days required for those things. I can't be on my feet. I can't even really sit up for more than a few hours, honestly, at a time without having to lay down. I have to rest a lot. I just have like continuous pain and a lot of other issues that I've talked about in other videos, so I'm not going to get into them a lot too, but it basically led to me having to kind of just give up everything that my life had been building towards and that I had achieved and worked for years. And I was just kind of frozen and not knowing what I was doing. I was suddenly staying home all the time and just kind of wallowing in my literal physical pain, I guess. And I was just watching a lot of shows on Netflix. I was watching a lot of YouTube. And then I would spend a lot of time just talking online to my sister and some friends about the shows I was watching and just theorizing, discussing, having conversations about what I thought when I viewed them. And I was watching a lot of reaction videos, and I talked to some people about those, and it was suggested to me, it was like, hey, you're home all the time and you're watching these shows, why don't you try to do some reaction videos? And it was extremely foreign to me as an idea, but I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And that was when Haunting of Hill House was first coming out, and I wanted to watch it, so I sat down and reacted to that series. And people were interested in it, and they wanted me to keep going, and that's how it started. And it kind of just built from there, with people suggesting more things for me to get involved in and react to. And along the way, somehow I stumbled into the Mortal Kombat community through Losty Girl, through just watching her and participating in her stream chats and meeting people there, and that brought me into the FGC. And so this kind of long, tangled path, really, it's hard to imagine, but yeah, I never had I want to be a YouTuber plan, ever. It's just something that kind of developed because I needed something to do, and I've been really grateful for it because it's been something to kind of give me a motivation and community when I have had a lot of difficult times and been unable to continue with what I was doing. So yeah. Yeah, so that got a little bit intense. Sorry about that. But yeah, I do have those videos having to do with my disability and health on the channel. You can find them if you want more details. This kind of relates actually. I believe you said you used to study anthropology. Was there a specific subject you specialized in? Do you have a culture or historical period you are most drawn towards? um, well, yes. I Anthropology, of course, is a four-field discipline, so you tend to have it differs somewhat in different parts of the world, but in the United States in particular, anthropology is a four-field discipline. So you have cultural anthropology, which I think is what your question was getting to more specifically. You have archaeology, which I think a lot of people kind of know what archaeology is, but you're looking mostly at past civilizations, groups that are no longer living or trying to learn something about them from what they've left behind. You have linguistics, which is, of course, the study of language in a broad way to put it. And then biological anthropology, which looks at things like human evolution. Medical anthropology looks at issues of health. And then there's genetics. Basically, all sorts of ways that humanity, human beings, and human populations have developed and changed over the years in relation to and in interaction with their natural environment. And there's a lot of interesting studies that occur there that have to do with, you know, the old nature versus nurture debate, what things occur because of natural biological processes, what things occur mostly because of environmental stimuli, and what things occur because of specific interactions between those two things that otherwise would not happen. And it's all very cool and fascinating. So I actually am someone that was interested in all four fields. A lot of people choose one and they mostly focus on that. And then when you get to kind of the graduate school level, the PhD level in particular, you usually have to do that. So I ended up choosing cultural as my specific focus when I got to that level, but I really loved all of them in different ways. I did a lot of work with archaeology. I did a lot of work with bioanth, and you know, I've even taught some classes on those things, and I had a lot of passion for them, so it was hard for me to make a choice. But then when I did decide to go the more cultural route, I focused on issues that have to do with both education, the learning process, pedagogy, because that related to my own experiences as a teacher, and then also political anthropology, which is something that continues to be very fascinating to me. And that was the area I was planning to do most of my primary research in at the time. So I wouldn't say there's a particular historical period I'm mostly drawn towards, because most of what I'm looking at is more of the, you know, anthropology, unless you're really in mostly archaeology, is mostly focused on the contemporary and the present. So yeah, but I guess in terms of my actual studies of history and teaching history, I don't know. I like a lot of what I guess you would consider to be more ancient civilizations. I like learning about them, but in terms of like US history, I was really fascinated always by the Civil War and Reconstruction era. So, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot, and I could talk about this also forever. So, maybe someday I'll do a video talking about that and specifically related to questions about that too, because I could go on for a long time. And the last one, kind of also talking about just life outside of things. How was your youth growing up different from now? Hobbies, interests, dream jobs? Because certainly a lot has changed. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I grew up pretty poor, I will say. We didn't have a lot. And so my expectations of what I could do and achieve were not necessarily as big as they later got to be. Like, I never really anticipated myself eventually going to, you know, it being in a PhD program. I mean, going to Columbia University, I was like, I could not have envisioned that sort of thing ever happening to me. I guess my dream job when I was a kid, before I ever actually had thoughts about realities of getting a job was acting, because I just loved movies. I loved movies so much. So that has always been a hobby and a passion of mine, is watching movies. And I think a lot of it does go back to just when I was a kid, just watching lots of movies, even ones we shouldn't watch, like Predator and Jaws, with my dad and my sister, who wasn't necessarily so happy about it, but I was. And I just always loved talking about films, the idea of acting. And when I was a kid, we were in a very small school, kindergarten through 12. We're all in one building, so you can imagine, very small town. And they would do drama productions, especially musicals, every year. And when I was a little kid, they actually did Meet Me in St. Louis, which, if you've ever seen it, either the play or like the films based on that, there's a pretty central, important role that is of a little girl. And I was actually asked to play that role when I think I was about 8. And I just loved it. And so I did, musicals and drama after that throughout high school. And then when I first went to college, I would do those too. And as I got older, it wasn't something that I thought, would actually be a career path, because that didn't seem possible or practical, but it was just something that I loved. And that did come out of my childhood. Yeah, otherwise, hobbies, interests, a lot of the same things. I've always been a huge reader, and that led me down kind of the path that my life was taking, or would have taken, before I got sick. Because, of course, there's a tremendous amount of reading involved in academia and going to graduate school and conducting research, especially in the social sciences, and in teaching. So the fact that I would read constantly as a kid was huge to me, in kind of helping me get to that point later in life and doing well in school. And of course, when you're in graduate school, you would sometimes have to be reading 5 or 6 whole thick books a week worth of material. So that definitely came in handy at that point in time. So yeah, I would say a lot of my hobbies and interests in that regard were pretty much the same. And the funny thing is that some of my others were things like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter fighting games, which then for a while, when I was, progressing in my career, kind of took a back seat. And the same thing with the movies, kind of took a back seat and went to the side, because I was so focused in graduate school. And it took me getting sick and not being able to do my career anymore to kind of get me back to them. And that's one of the reasons that I've been so glad to have this opportunity on YouTube and in the FGC with my team and my friends. Not just because it's given me something to do, but because it's given me a chance to kind of bring back some of the things I loved, my interests and hobbies when I was younger, that I just didn't have time for anymore. So it's one of the positives, I suppose. Yeah, so I think that's it for the questions, guys. And also because this has gotten to be a little bit long and I don't want to go on for too much longer, but maybe we'll do one of these more in the future, depending on how the channel progresses and if you're interested. Oh, I was going to talk about this. Yeah, I've mentioned sometimes before, just the health situation. It can really cause some problems. I've been having kind of a bad pain spell the past couple days. So I haven't gotten the chance to wash my hair today, and I just can't stand up in the shower for that long, unfortunately, right now, today. But I still really wanted to get some filming done. So yeah, so I got a couple wigs, and I just threw one of those on so that my hair wouldn't look like too much of a disaster. So hope you guys don't mind the silly pink and purple. But yeah, so thank you guys again so much for 10,000 subscribers, for being there, for supporting me, for giving me something to do and look forward to. And maybe sometime we'll do another one in the future. So until then, bye.